I'm Adam Calaway. I'm at Cattle Chat Corner at NCBA 2014. I'm joined by Daren Williams. Daren, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're doing here at NCBA.
Well, I'm the Executive Director of Communications for the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. I work on beef checkoff funded programs, media relations, the Masters of Beef Advocacy. I've spent my entire career in agricultural communications. Didn't grow up on a farm, though. I come from a western Kansas wheat farming family, but we moved away when I was a kid, so I'm kind of one of those first-generation removed consumers, and my job is to bridge between farmers and ranchers and consumers to build that bridge back of trust.
Let's talk about that a little bit. We've seen some advertisements in the mainstream media from a burrito company that really portrays agriculture as a factory. What's your response to that? And then sort of why do you think that consumers have that, some consumers may have that perception?
Well, you know, those animated commercials are kind of more like a cartoon, really, than reality. I think they paint an image of good versus bad agriculture that is dangerous because that deceives the consumer into thinking that there's a good way to raise food and a bad way to raise food. And really, there's just a lot of different ways to raise food, and we need them all. We need small farmers, we need bigger farmers, we need organic and natural and grass-fed and grain-fed cattle ranchers. We need to be able to use all of the resources that we have. If you have great grass, you know, that's great, and all cattle start out on grass, obviously. But if you're in a grain-producing region and we can finish those cattle on grain and produce more pounds of beef with fewer resources that way, then that's important that consumers understand that's what we're doing when we grain finish in a feed yard.
Why is it important to have all the different types of agriculture?
Well, because we got a growing world population that we're going to have to feed, and so we're going to need it all. And we're going to need all the food production that we can get. And because as the population grows, obviously land available for agricultural production shrinks. And so we got to find newer, better ways of doing things. We need innovators. We need, we're going to continue to need those people that are just really good at raising calves out on grass and doing that every year and keeping that cycle going. So it's really, my viewpoint is we need to be an all-inclusive and be working together as an agricultural community and not trying to divide each other or tear each other apart like the advertisements you referenced.
What do you think consumers' perception of the agricultural industry is, and how is that being shaped?
Well, I think consumer perception it's actually just a lack of information about what happens. So their perception is based on, Hollywood productions like Food Inc. and cartoons, and so we want them to get the real glimpse of what farming and ranching really is all about. We do know that consumers have expectations. They want a continuous improvement in all levels. They want us to continuously improve the way we care for cattle and the way we care for the land, and continuous improvements in the safety of the products we produce. And the good news for farmers and ranchers is that's what we're all about, is always doing it better. And the Noble Foundation, that's what you guys are about, is helping them learn newer, better ways to do things. And so I think as long as we can let consumers know we're listening to them and paying attention to what they're saying, and we're trying to get a better understanding of what their expectations are so that we can meet those expectations in the future.
How do consumers get education? Where do they go to get that information?
Well, of course, today's consumer, particularly those millennial consumers, live in the online space and in social media. That's where they live most of their lives. So they go on and do a Google search, or they go on and ask their friends on Facebook or tweet out a question and take whatever responses they get. That's one of the reasons we focus so much time and attention on helping equip farmers and ranchers to be active and engaged in those conversations in those areas. That's what the Masters of Beef Advocacy program really is all about, is helping farmers and ranchers learn how to get on Twitter and Facebook and blog and meet consumers where they are and answer their questions. We want to hear those questions directly from consumers, and we want to be able to answer those questions directly back to them, not through the filter of media or journalists.
You talked a little bit earlier about bridging the divide and all that. What other programs do we have going on that are helping provide those educational outlets and providing good quality information?
One of the things we do, and we've spent a lot of time working on through checkoff programs in recent years, is getting people on farms and ranches, and feedlots in particular, because feedlots are where a lot of the questions come from. It looks like is that a factory farm? Or what is a factory farm in the mind of a consumer? So we take what we call influencers, or people who have a lot of influence over other consumers, the people that consumers go to when they have questions, like dietitians, chefs. Consumers are asking chefs about sustainability. So we take them to our farms and ranches and feed yards and packing houses, and we show them firsthand, so that when they get those questions from consumers, they can say, "I've been there, I've seen it, and this is what I saw," and it may not exactly match what your perception is.
Animal welfare has always been a topic that's at the forefront of our consumers' minds. Tell me what the consumers should know about animal welfare on the farms in the United States.
Well, the consumer expectation is that every animal that's raised for food is treated properly. And what I'd want them to know is that that's the farmers and ranchers' expectation too. And and when we see videos of mistreatment, and we do see those videos, and we know those things do occur very rarely, but when we see them, we have the same reaction they do. Is that that's not acceptable treatment. That's not acceptable behavior. We expect every animal to be treated properly. They deserve that respect. We're raising them to produce food. We're not raising pets, but they still deserve to have a good life. And we want consumers to know that that's our expectation and that's our goal, and we're going to continuously work through programs like the Beef Quality Assurance Program to get better at doing that. We learn from people like Dr. Temple Grandin, and who's taught us so much about how to kind of get inside the mind or through the eyes of the animal and understand their behavior so that we can do a better job of providing proper care for them.
Let's talk a little bit. McDonald's came out recently and announced that they want to use verifiable, sustainable beef, start purchasing it by 2016. What is sustainability, and maybe what's the difference between sustainability in the eye of the producer and sustainability in the eye of the consumer?
Well, that's a really interesting question, and we asked consumers how they define sustainability, and it's really all over the board. Now, they do talk about things like animal care and animal treatment as part of sustainability. They also talk about things like shelf life of food and food waste. And, a lot of people tend to think of it purely in environmental terms, but the consumer doesn't really think about it in environmental terms. A sustainable industry is a responsible industry. That's the word that really comes up over and over again with consumers, is responsible. So we set out on a program, a beef checkoff funded program 3 years ago, to define sustainability for the beef industry. What is sustainability? What does it mean? And we have three major platforms for that. It's environmental responsibility, social diligence, and economic opportunity. So environmental, social, and economic. Things like animal care would fall under the social issues. But if farmers and ranchers aren't profitable economically sustainable, then we won't be there 10, 20, 50 years from now. And environmental certainly is a big part of it. So we recently completed the first comprehensive life cycle assessment, the most comprehensive life cycle assessment ever conducted on any food product for beef, to say, where are we today? More importantly, where are those areas where we can improve in the future? One of the big aha moments for me out of that research was food waste is a huge issue when it comes to sustainability. You think about it, if food is thrown away, then every input, water, soil, whatever that went into producing it, is wasted. And not only that, but then that goes into a landfill. And so that's in the negative column in sustainability. Beef, fortunately, is one of the least wasted commodities we produce, according to the USDA Economic Research Service. Only about 20% of beef is wasted, and I say only, but that still is a lot. But compared to the 40% of all other food products that go into the garbage and then into the landfill, we're doing a pretty good job there. And I think that's because when people buy beef, they love it, they eat it, it doesn't go to waste. But we can still improve there. I mean, an impact, if we could improve that a third and cut that waste a third, that would have a huge impact on sustainability.
How do consumers react when they hear statistics like that?
Well, we haven't gone and talked directly to consumers too much about this yet. We just got this life cycle assessment certified this past year. And we're getting out now and we're talking to some of the companies and organizations you mentioned, McDonald's, Walmart's, and others, about what we're doing and how we define sustainability and how that looks to the beef industry, because we know they're interested because they are hearing from their consumer. But I think consumers have a tendency, and I'll go back to some experience I've had on things like beef safety. They don't want us to point the finger at them and say this is your issue. They want somebody to stand up and take responsibility for it. But we are going to do that, and we're going to say, yeah, we understand that's our issue, and we're going to work with you, and we're going to need your help here if we're going to really truly achieve sustainability. Part of that's going to be on the consumer end, helping reduce food waste and packaging waste.
The United States spends about less than 10% of the disposable income per capita on food. Why do we spend less than everybody else in the world?
Well, because American farmers and ranchers do a better job at producing food efficiently. Now, that word efficiently, you got to be a little careful with. Consumers might look at that as, well, are we cutting corners to save costs? Are we cutting corners or maybe taking advantage of the environment in order to produce cheap food? So what I'm really saying by efficiently is we produce more food with fewer resources. Less land, less water, less feed for cattle, less fuel. So that allows us to produce it more economically for the consumer. For about 25 years I've been in this business, and we've talked about the American farmer produces the world's most abundant, most affordable, most nutritious food supply. But abundance and affordability, the consumer looks at it and says, I can go to the grocery store anytime I want, and there's an abundance of food. That's not a big issue for me. Affordability is not a big issue for me. For the most part, I feel like I can afford the food I buy. What they want to know now is, are we really keeping the eye on their health, their long-term health, the long-term health of the environment? And I think we are. And I think there's a lot of work going on in that area, and it's exciting because we're going to be able to share that with consumers now through social media channels and other things, and engage in a constructive conversation about these issues, because these are important issues and we need to be talking about them.
If you could tell consumers one thing and them really have an opportunity to get it, what would you tell them?
I'd probably just share the stories of the farms and ranches that I get the opportunity to visit. I've traveled to all 50 states, and I've visited a wide variety of farms and ranches. And there's one common thing, and that's that the people who raise food are just tremendous people. And I'm blessed to work in this industry because I work for good people who really do care about the same thing they care about. We care about those animals. We care about the land that we live on and use to produce food. We care about the safety and health of our own families the same way any consumer cares about the safety and health of their own family. So we have a lot more in common than we do differences, and we just need to focus more on what we have in common.
Daren Williams, thank you for stopping by Cattle Chat Corner.